covers are just amazing to me, so I think it's going to be a really good talk. First of all, we have one of the artists here. I want to thank all the artists in the show. Well, now we have 3 of the artists here. Your work has just been a joy to watch every day when I come into the gallery, so thank you. Thank you. And thank y'all for coming. So I'd also like to thank our curator, Lori Mahoney, for her wonderful idea to do the Touch the Sky exhibit. It started out as kites, and then it sort of blossomed into other things that fly, so that's really cool. So I'd like to introduce Jack and Renae, and then I have some questions for each of you, and then I have signed up some shared questions, and then during all that time, if the audience wants to ask questions too, please feel free to just hop in. So Renae, if it's okay, can I start with you?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Okay, so I brought your work out so everybody can see it. So, I forgot my little intro about both of you. So, Renae is a certified Cherokee Nation artist, is that correct? And an environmental advocate. Her mixed media works interweave indigenous language, myth, and sustainability to honor both heritage and the natural world. Absolutely stunning. And Jack is a ceramic artist whose very delicate porcelain sculptures draw from his refugee journey as a child from Myanmar to Malaysia, and transforming themes of memory and longing and resilience into poetic form. So please welcome our 2 artists. So Renae.
Yes.
So you weave together exquisitely the Cherokee language, myth, environmental advocacy in your work. How do you approach blending all of those elements together visually?
I don't. It just, that's who I am.
Sure.
I mean, the indigenous aspect is something that comes through me. The environmental part is what I'm an environmental scientist. That was my degree. When I was young, I was very creative, very artistic, but instead of that being celebrated, I was the black sheep of the family, okay?
I'm sorry.
I was awarded a few scholarships for some artistic things that some teachers sent in because I didn't have the confidence to send anything in. And my father, he dissuaded me from doing that because he didn't think anybody could make a living being an artist. He wasn't being mean, he was being protective of me. He was also the art teacher in our very small, the science teacher in our very small town high school. Mm-hmm. So, because I made straight A's, because he demanded that of me, I was to use my brain and to, and this isn't a wounded, victimized thing. He was doing, and I thought, well, makes sense, I guess. I didn't know any artists that were, making a living. And so then, though, as a compromise, I didn't go into teaching art, or I do teach art. I didn't go into teaching science. I loved Rachel Carlson and her book, Silent Spring. The library in my town was very old and dusty, and I'd read most everything in it. And that was just a book, it was several decades before me, but it just meant so much. So there was this new degree plan called environmental science. So I went that direction. So anyway, I did that for a couple of decades. I found that nobody wanted to pay anybody to come out of college to help them save the planet like I had these ideals and aspirations to do. They want to pay you to help them further degrade it and to get away with it, and that was disillusioning. I worked here in Dallas, maintaining the quality of our drinking water, and that was my compromise there, but it was very boring. So the environmental part is just something that was, it been with me forever, just like the Cherokee part. And then myth, it all goes together. Cherokee are storytellers. Native artists almost always are storytellers. So I don't so much think, well, let me paint a painting or come up with a picture to go along with such and such myth or story. I sit down, the process is more than the product to me. Things come through to me, and then often, well, always, I will find a story that matches what the piece comes out to I don't plan what I'm gonna make
Right.
ever, not once. I didn't plan these. I'll talk about that later, but I sit down to meditate and to put my hand, these are my paint brushes. I don't use that many brushes. I use sticks and old credit cards and things, and everything has meaning. Remembering who I was when I used that credit card, they're my deceased mother's cards, or, I'll pick up things on travels and I'll remember, where this branch came from or whatever. But that's just what art is to me. I don't sit down to make a piece of art. I just sit down to enjoy the process.
So,
Did I answer you? I just went
no,
around.
you're fine, you're fine, that's okay. So what stories did you find in those paintings?
In this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, when I begin, I just put paint to whatever. It's usually found wood, stuff on my walks. I carry a knapsack when I walk the dog because I find things. I put layers on, I take layers off. I put layers on, I take layers off. I'll add things, I'll glue things, I'll decide I don't like them. This goes on forever. Sometimes these things take years to come. This didn't take years, but it took a long time. And then I make marks, and then I write. And if I'm having a problem, I write. And this is all more for healing. And I don't normally sit down, if I'm in a funk or have a big problem, I don't normally sit down to make art. But as I'm making art, kind of like the resin bubbles, it comes up, the things come up. And then that's how I work through different things. Well, with this, my daughter walked by and she said, "Oh, look, there's a W." And I didn't plan a W. And she goes, "Oh, there's a W in this one over here. You must just really be Wing." And then away she went. And I looked at it and I thought, well, I did not make a W, but I saw exactly what she was talking about. But what I saw was a beak, and that's what I normally do. Put a lot of this together. This, this right here will be what it is overall after I'm finally through finagling with it, and then I'll turn it and turn it and turn it until I see if I see something. It's usually an eyeball. And the curious thing about that is I almost never allow eyeballs. I X them out. I took an eyeball workshop thinking that maybe I just wasn't happy with my depiction of eyeballs. I about perfected so many different types of eyeballs. I still want to X them out when I'm done. But I saw the beak, she saw the W, and it just came to me, warbirds. And so removing things, I kind of carved out these two. Again, they weren't even together. But I carved out this shape, and then that's when the myth came to me, and when when it all started coming together of what it is. And that, to me, it's trash to treasure, or discovering something. That's the reason that I make art, is when I get that, oh my gosh, look, this is what's coming through. And that's how I came up with those. And even the sunrise and the sunset, I did not put those in. I didn't plan them. It's just, as I started carving away, I went, oh, wow, there's something here else matching it again. This was, I think, even on another table, but curiosities.
So I wanted to kind of explore the naming of your warbirds. Is it Salagi? Tsalagi?
Salagi.
Butchered that.
Right.
It's very powerful to me when I look at that. So what is the significance of the act of writing in the Cherokee symbols for you?
Well, that's another story. I'm from Oklahoma originally. I've been here longer than I was there, but it was always important to me to take my two children, my little Dallasites, back to Cherokee country. And we would do these classes that were put on by the Heritage Museum in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, which is the Cherokee capital. And my kids were little. I mean, I homeschooled them, so we would go off on these adventures, but I don't remember how old they were, but they were young. And they would have these activities and events, and the really popular ones were blowguns and stickball and that kind of stuff. So there'd be a lot of kids wanting to go do those, and I saw this little lady at a table by herself, very, very old lady. And I said, let's go over, she's lonely, you know, because they're little kids. Let's go over, she's lonely, we'll come back over here in a little bit. Well, Sequoia, who invented oscillatory, the reason that he did that is when the white people came in and started taking over, he saw them reading in books, and he called them magic leaves, and he said that was the reason the white people were able to come in and overpower them, is because they had magic in their leaves. So she had leaves cut out with syllabary, and then on the other side it would say like hello, OCO, and then turn it over hello. So I'm trying to engage my kids who want to be blowing darts, you know, that let's go over and work with this lady. And so I'm saying the words along with them and trying to be encouraging to get them to want to do it. And I'm very tall. She was very small, tiny little thing. She probably didn't weigh 100 pounds, and I know she was probably in her 90s. But I'm saying the words along with them, and she reaches and grabs me and says, do everything in your power to keep the language alive. And I thought, I'm learning the language with my kids. I don't know the language. But she was such a force, and I mean, I said, okay, you know. Well, the reason she was so passionate is because she was one of 1,500 of remaining Cherokee speakers. Even though we were the only tribe that had created the syllabary, so our language is stronger than most, there's a big push, it's endangered. There's more than that now because the tribe has done a lot to try and bring younger people in. But what I did at that time is I went and enrolled in Cherokee. Oh my goodness, I was in my 40s. I mean, and you can't learn it. I mean, you can learn it. I don't want to say that, but there's a lot of coming out of your throat and your diaphragm. It's not just speaking. And I thought, by the time I even get anywhere with this, I'm going to be where she was in life. So what good is that? So then it kind of, I don't know, I think I had a dream. I'm kind of out there, but it just dawned on me, do something with art. And I couldn't figure out what I could do with art, but at that time, I was doing a lot of horses, and I learned the word for horse in Cherokee is sopali, and I started carving it in, and that was the beginning of that. And I've sold a lot of art to the tribe, and I look at it kind of like, this one went deeper than that, but kind of like picture books. When a dog or a cat or a horse or whoever comes through, then I have a good connection there with some people. I always run it by the elders to make sure I'm correct. I don't just get it off, you know, the internet, because a lot of times that's wrong. But that's my whole thing. And really all the art that I've made in the last 2 decades has been to promote the language.
Audience, questions? Oh, don't be shy.
So I'm also creating through my feeling experiences about my porcelains, and how do you like, although you're not controlling your elements to it, how do you kind of like, when you're doing the process, how do you eliminate what not to be in the picture and what to be in the picture of your like resins?
Whatever color that I've ended up that I think I'm gonna like, then I'll go an opposite. So if the artwork's really dark, then I'll get a white or a light something. I think I have a problem with making decisions and choices because everything comes to me. Paint comes to me. That's up to somebody will say, "Hey, I've got this house paint. Do you want it?" I won't let anything go to waste. When I first went into the environmental degree program, one of my first professors said, when you go to throw something away, think about it, there is no away. Oh my goodness, did I take that literally? So if someone else doesn't want to dispose of their house paint, oh, Renee's an artist, she'll take it. I have to find a way to use that house paint. in my art. I'm not painting houses, you know, I'm putting it on things. So I'll just go the opposite and just start, you know, carving. Again, I saw the beak, I saw the W. I don't know how I came up, well, it would have to have wings because it was a bird. So I just take another color and start using my fingers or that credit card and just see what wants to go away. And then after a while, I think it's like when I knew someone who whittled, you know, carved out little bits of wood, and you would say, I don't really usually know what I'm doing, but you get to a certain point, and then I realized I'm making this into some sort of bird shape. It's very rudimentary here, but then I start kind of going for the aspect of how can I turn this into something. You know, some of my stuff is a little more literal, but not really. But after you see what it's going to be, then you just go in and start adding details.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a question?
I haven't gotten to look up close, but so what's the medium?
It's just a whole lot of paint and some glitter and a little carving, well, a lot of carving, but you kind of can't see that now because, and then gold leaf and then resin on top.
Is the paint acrylic or oil?
There's some house paint in there.
Right.
And
Use.
yes, there's acrylic and pastels, just whatever I teach. So a lot of it, you know, just whatever I grab because I have
So-
every.
And what's the panel?
No, this is just some. I had another artist friend that she bought some panels and then they weren't to her quality. Well, for me, by the time I finished with a whole lot of layers, it doesn't matter whether it was a pricey, nice thing. And they had some, I don't remember, what are those things called when there's kind of a blemish in a piece of wood, burr, or I don't know what she called the word.
Not?
They had those things in them, and I didn't care. I mean, because I'm gonna
Covered
glue.
it up.
I collage. I start with collage usually. I start with writing, journaling, collaging. So there's, I mean, you can see on the side there's a lot of layers. So there were some panels that I bought and deemed inferior to someone else. So that's what they originally were.
So the words memory and thought, very symbolic. Is there something that made those words appear for you too?
Yes, because they were going in opposite directions. It just weirded me out. These two things came out looking like the beaks were, I could see the beaks in all turmoil, kind of in the right place. So I just knew it was something that was meant to be. When I started realizing, you know, that one's going one direction, one's going the other, I just thought of there's a Norse myth, Odin, the god. There's some out on the, there's birds on the stoops.
We have a lot of those.
He sends two birds, they live on his shoulder, but he sends them out each day to go find the information. And so that came to me of what, I don't know, that's just what they were, and that's where their names are Moonin and Hugin, and that means memory and thought. But for me, then it came to me to be my own memory and my own thought. Like, where am I going? I'm heading this direction with all of these experiences and all these things that came before. And, well, I have something I want to say about that. It's kind of deep and triggering, so watch what I'm going to say. But when I started going into the memories, I'm thinking really happy things for a while. And then your memories were made up. Like my art pieces, there are a whole lot of layers to this lady right here. And not all of them good. And some really bad memories came up. Not, you know, I've worked through those things in therapy for years, but I was able to embrace that as part of me without a huge violating, trauma-causing incident that I've been working through for 20 years. I wouldn't have the children that I have that have nothing to do with that. I wouldn't be probably making art. I wouldn't be sitting right here. I don't know where I would be. But because I'm very happy with who I am and what I am, I have to be happy with that thing that happened. And that these little birds, the warbirds, they set that free for me. That I can just go on with, you know, that's who I am. I survived it, and I've got a story to tell now. And it's something that I didn't speak about forever, and now I'm gonna speak about it, because, you know, everybody's got something. You don't have what I have, but everybody has something, and it's just what makes us who we are and what we are, and that's, I don't know, I guess I went really deep into that, but I went really deep into thinking about that little myth that I, you know, encountered in college 40 years ago. So,
Thank you for sharing that.
I didn't plan to make those, if that's what your question was from 15 minutes ago,
Yeah, you're fine.
me talking around and around, but that's just what, you know, they mean to me when they came out.
Sure. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
So Jack.
Yes.
So, there's a lot of personal history that I see in your work, of displacement. It's a very powerful story. How do you choose which memories or symbols that you want to translate into these physical forms, the porcelain pinwheels, your paper planes? How does that all come about?
So when I'm usually doing research or when I'm sketching things, so I would just do randomly just draw, or like sometimes I would just grab a clay body and I would just using just pressing, and then whenever something the shapes comes up, and then there's like, okay, it kind of reminds me of my childhood, that what I'm doing, especially for this paper airplanes. And then I would just fold in paper, and then I just remember that the memories that we had back in Myanmar. There is a monsoon season which is like 3 months straight up raining, so it won't stop. So and we just make paper airplanes and then throw it on like to the from the house to the like those little streams, so they can just melt and then kind of disappear in the water. So when I'm starting and choosing picking things, so usually all the time it has my experience, also like expressing other people's experience. So when for this purpose for paper airplanes, usually it's towards like the kids' memories. So whenever like based on what I'm doing, then I was feeling my own memories experience. But when I'm showing to the audience, I want the audience to kind of feel their own experience, and then they're kind of like connect with their childhood. And then also if they have never done paper airplanes, then they can kind of have their own experience and new memories towards their like their life.
So you were very young when you made this journey.
Yeah, so I lived there in Burma for like 9 years, and then moved to Malaysia. And then Myanmar was really great, a great country, it's just the government. So, and then moved to Malaysia, and then I was going to middle school in Malaysia, yeah. And then we didn't have, like documentation. So we're going to school, but we're not going to the normal school. So it's kind of like a broadened school, but it's like, it's just for immigrants, yeah.
So for everybody, Jack's works are the porcelain paper plane here, and then the 3 pinwheels. It's right here in front of you, how you do. So can you talk about, you mentioned in your biography, wabi sabi, and can you expand on that for your work, especially how it connects to the themes of loss and resilience that you really struggle with in your life?
So, I mean, I thought I was just passing through a normal life, because I don't usually know, it would just become normal to me, although it was just hardship. And then I thought everyone's kind of like go through it, because we have like my friends, we just have the same stuff going on. So as a kid, we don't think about other stuff, we're just like, okay, this is just normal life, and then we just deal with it.
Yeah.
So and so the wabi sabi is usually when I go to undergrad, and then there is a professor's influenced by Japanese culture and traditions, and then he was talking about wabi sabi, because I was always pushing the medium, like the sculpture, to the perfection, like details and all those stuff. And then he was like, don't push the materials, it's like you have to let it go, and then kind of like appreciate the imperfection, because if it is perfect, then it is not human made. So if you have to appreciate the profession, at the same time you have to also appreciate imperfection, so you have a balance between. It's kind of like your life too. So at the same time we're trying to be perfect, but it's not always perfect. So that's how I treat my sculptures. Like I will control the material that I can be able to control, and then I will let it go. And then at some point I would stop, and then I would just if usually in the kiln happens. So for us, for ceramicists, sometimes these can crack or explode. So I don't really take grudges about those things. So I would just like, okay, if something happened or if something shrink, and then I would just accept. I already did what I'm able to do, and now I have to accept that what's going on. Yeah.
I'd like to take some of that into my own practice. So the porcelain is so delicate. How do you see that contrast with the fleeting nature of childhood and your memory in your sculptures? Is there some type of connection or symbolism?
So back in Myanmar, there's several states, but our state is always recognized for those sculptures and ceramics and wood sculptures and jewelry. And it's always, when I'm working, always connected with where I came from. So the porcelain actually is my roots, and then also the clay is like art. So I kind of like do touch, and I kind of like my physical forms at the same times. And also the reason I always expose the nature of the porcelain color is because I always work with the memories and experience. Memories and experience are always ghostly, so it's always white and blurred out. Sometimes it is a blank. It's like a blank canvas. You think about it, and then you think that I was like the true memories, and then sometimes the memories shifted, and then it wasn't how you remember, and it wasn't how you think about it. And even then, like I always think about, like, if I go back to Myanmar in the same house, the memories I remember is gonna not be the same anymore. So it's gonna get old, and everything's changed, and the roads even like developed. So those kind of like porcelain surfaces treat as like a blank canvas, at the same time it's like the fragility and translucency of that. So you can kind of relate with your own thought and experience. Yeah.
Audience, any questions? Don't be shy. Yes.
Would you say the delicacy of the ceramics ties into the delicacy of the nature that's going on in Burma right now?
Yes, if you haven't heard about the earthquake in Myanmar, and then that's the country where I come from. So I always talk about and refer as Burma, but it was previous names, and then some people know as Burma, and then some people known to be known as like Myanmar. So before that, back in 2019, the civil war started. So my family has to flee into different states, and then a lot of people lost their life, and then a lot of people lost their homes. But at the same time, like they don't have control over the nature of destructions. So at the same time, I think about my porcelain as a fragility. So it's kind of like your life. You have to kind of like be gentle, and then also be careful with this. So when I'm working on my sculptures, I always have to be mindful, which is like a meditative state of like, I don't have to think about any other stuff. So it has to be in the present moment. So that's why like, I was able to work on my stuff. And then if I was just thinking about all those experiences and what I'm getting the news from Myanmar, then I won't be able to work, and just like sit down and just stress. So I just hold those things, and then when I touch clay, everything's got quiet, and then I'm just there. I'm touching clay, nothing else.
It's very meditative.
Yeah.
So you described Fragile Ascent as both personal and political. How do you balance your personal storytelling with honoring the collective trauma, such as the children that were lost in the conflict in Myanmar?
So like the feeling towards is not political, it's sharing the expressions. So I'm not attacking Myanmar government or blaming about it. It's just like people need to have empathy towards it. It's not political, it's just expression of human nature. And so the balance between my sculpture and political is 100% my experience and my emotion towards the sculpture is not political. But those are the causes of those experiences are based on politics statements. So people can sometimes relate with their political ideologies, and sometimes people can relate with their self experience, and sometimes people can relate with their memories. So I think a human's being is all like composite of everything. So political and also memories and experience has to be in the art piece.
Sure. Other questions? Well, you have I just found out he has a show with another artist. Can you tell us about your show that's going on?
Yeah, so the show is with my twin brother. So we also go to the same grad school. So our second year, and then we had an opportunity to have a show at the Haggerty Gallery at University of Dallas, which is really nice space. So we work on one semester and then fill the whole space in using both stoneware ceramics and also my porcelain pieces. So there's the main thing about those pieces are based on the experience happening back in Myanmar, and also the experience and the memories back through migrations from Myanmar, Malaysia to here, because sometimes like you said, like memories kind of make you who you are. It's like memory and the experience make you who you are, and then if I was into that situation, I won't be able to make these delicate porcelain, or I won't be able to make all those art pieces. So I think it is meant for me to motivate and dedicate towards what I'm doing. So if you have time, you can check it out at Haggerty Gallery at University of Dallas.
Any other questions? Yes.
How long have you been working in this medium?
So mediums 10 years ago. So I started really young, and then but my porcelain was in my own medium. So I started with the stonewares, and then low fire red clay body, which is like a lower temperature, like kitchen grade temperature, and then towards that I started like studying about porcelains and all this stuff, and then later I found out that I had memories and experience those things. Although I didn't have touch back in Myanmar, I have seen it through experiences, and then I have seen like all those memory, and then I was like, why don't I use these medium as a porcelain? And then also I like the translucency and delicate of porcelain, and I like to portray the audience. They always think they're really fragile, but their porcelain is one of the strongest among clay, because they're made from stone alabaster. Yeah, that's why I chose to make with porcelain pieces.
Other questions?
Yes.
How many of these do you normally make for one idea? How do you approach that? Do you just make one and just hope it works out?
You mean one idea, like one sculpture, like a paper, and then
Yes. Oh yeah, like what? Maybe just thinking about the paper airplanes or your pinwheels.
Yeah, pinwheel, yes. When I started working on these things, accidentally happened sometimes. So I remember there was time that I was working for my paper airplanes, and then it's failures. A lot of things cracked, a lot of things, because I didn't have the right porcelain. So I had to study about how I was making, putting paper in porcelain, how to age porcelains, because I actually made my own clay. And then when I was trying to push this paper airplanes, I accidentally discovered that I can also make pinwheel. Not because I was trying to make it, because the clay started to dry. So I was like, I need to use it before it dries. So I'm like, why not I start cutting? And then this thing doesn't have any cut. So that's why I started cutting into different shapes, and then I started trying to fold, and then it worked. And then that's why like I was like, okay, I can expand more. Sometimes like when I'm working on some things, some of my memories comes. So I visualize it, and then I started using, and I tried to manipulate porcelain to make it happen. But at the same time, I was discovering a lot of techniques, so I can like expand my own sculptures into from airplanes to pinwheel, and then I also have different elements towards that.
So why did you leave Malaysia?
So I was in Myanmar for 9 years. And
Is that where you were born?
Yes.
Oh.
So we were doing good as a family, but the country is not that good.
Right.
So we have to move to Malaysia, and then we don't have any documents. So I can be a citizen or document citizen over there. So we can live and work there, but it's not permanent. So at the same time, we have applied for UNHCR, which is like a refugees stage. So throughout the process, it takes 5 years. So, and that time they also have the private school for which is meant for refugees as an immigrant, and then we can go to those schools, but we have to pay for it because when I'm living there, it's not free. It's just like we have to work, and then we have to wait for the process of to be here because our goal is not to live in Malaysia. Our goal is to come here.
It was always to come.
Always has been. And then some people are lucky enough to be come here within a year. So some people have never come here. And then I was lucky to be here after 5 years. So throughout that time, it's like they have stages of like the appointment, like they would take our blood test, our interview, and then if it is true or not, and then they have several interviews and the different process of getting document from here, and then getting a visa through UNHCR to come here. So it took 5 years. That's
So
why.
did your whole family get to come here?
No, I haven't seen my mom for 11 years.
Lord.
So when we come to Malaysia, my mom wasn't with us. So but now she's in Malaysia. But we're trying to call it like provide like a sponsorship to come here, but the Burmese Myanmar government won't allow it. So she is now in Malaysia, but she also have a passport, not like us. So since the country is bad, she's migrated to Malaysia for now. And my dad is here and my twin brother is here. Yeah.
And you can't go back to Malaysia.
I can go back because I'm a citizen right now here, so I'm not Burmese citizen anymore. So, but it is not guaranteed that I can go back.
Yeah, we right now.
But I can
we
go back
know.
to Malaysia because it wasn't. I don't have any documentation of my Malaysian because they don't have any document for immigrants.
Is your mother alone?
My mother is one of my distant uncles, so she's safe. We always talk about it, and then she have a job over there. So yeah.
Other questions for Jack?
I kind of know the answers to this, but I kind of want you guys to hear it.
Okay.
So there's a nail on these 3 here. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, so when I do installation with these, I transform into different, or I spend a lot more for, so for pinwheel especially, because the functionality of the pinwheel is to spin when there's wind. So I put a nail on it because sometimes you want to spin your life and then depends on like what you want to do. You can do it like the functionality because of some like situation or some people don't have opportunity to expand or express their emotion or their experience. Like sometimes it was stopped. So although you have the energy or you have the talent to it, there is some stuff it can stop you, like especially sometimes different situations happen or different struggle happen, so you have to stop it. So for the memory of those things, I kind of like put it on my like hidden secret meaning behind it, and then usually I will have sometimes I would tie the rope and then on the nail so that you can kind of see like okay, they were meant to function as a pinwheel, but they're not spinning, so their functionality is taken away. It's just like a statue of those things anymore. So so this time I kind of took it away the rope because if someone buys it and then they kind of have control over it, and then if they want to let the pinwheel go, and then they don't have to tie it, and then if someone wants to kind of just want to tie it for any reason where there's a lot of wind, you have to stop it, then you It depends on like expressing. You can function, or you can push more, but there is some stuff can stop it, and then it's kind of like countries situations. You have ability to do it, but you can't because you're not given opportunity. Yeah.
I'm glad you asked that question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, so we've asked questions of individually of the artist. I have some shared questions for both of you, so just feel free to pop up and give answers as you like. So flight and air are at the heart of this exhibition. How did the theme inspire or challenge you in your creative process for the pieces that you have in the show?
Based on the techniques, right? So I struggle a lot creating these pieces when I haven't got a piece that has broken. So I was using commercial clay, but I wasn't modifying the clay, and I was using moist clay. So as moist clay, the nature of to expand and really like and then it shrink during the firing. So it has a memory when you push it or when you press it. So I wasn't able to get those things. And then when I make this kind of thing, it just crack or break because they have their own memories. The clay memories kind of create the shrinkage and then also the expansions. That's why I started using, and then okay, why not I use this like thick slip, which is like the creamy paste of a porcelain, and then I will add some paper and then I will age it. It smells really bad, but after that, the paper kind of work as like expansions elements towards clay. Whenever it's drying or whenever it's firing, it would just kind of like more flexible towards porcelains. And then I will add some paper and then I will age it, and then the paper is kind of like started to smell and it started to turn to grow and then becomes more like sticky. So that time I can kind of shape however I want, and then that time I can kind of fire and I can kind of transport it, because whenever porcelain is dry, it's really fragile. Like before I put it in the kiln, I have to really be careful. Only it's strongest whenever it's fired into cone 6 or cone 10, depending on the vitrification of the porcelain when you're using. Yeah.
So the theme, touching the sky, what does that theme mean to you personally as artists and individuals? Did you have any thoughts around it?
When I'm making art, I'm up there. I'm not down here where all the chaos and the problems and the politics and the arguments and the, and the good stuff, but that when I submitted, it was because I loved that whole concept, touch the sky. It grabbed me immediately and I wanted to take part in it. I thank both of you for including my art and for letting me talk today. But I was working on these when it came along, so I thought, oh, this is, me and my meaning. You guys are getting that everything's connected for me. But I had no concept of whether this would be what you were looking for, and I really kind of thought not. What I wanted to do was to make a kite or something. I do a lot with textiles and paper because people give me that too, and I hand make paper. And I had this. I don't have ideas for that. I have that aspect of my art. I do have ideas for, and I really wanted to make something elaborate to hang from the sky, and it was going to be an eagle, and I just did not have time for that. But that's, to me, touching the sky. The eagle flies higher than any bird, and looking down on all the mess down here. That's what it meant to me.
To me, it's like relating with the childhoodness, like when we were kind of like using and playing with paper airplanes. We always thought it's gonna fly, so and then we can see the sky. So it's not meant to function as like an airplane exactly, but it's just a paper airplane. As a kid, we can kind of like using imaginations to just fly. And then for paper film wheel, like on sky, it depends on what it is, angry like raining, or it is sometimes it is windy because of So that's why like, I kind of relate with the sky as a whole exhibition for this piece.
So, each of you, how do you see your work evolving in the next year or two? Are there some themes or materials that you would like to explore or try that you may or may not have before?
I just met this lady. She's downsizing. She's been an artist forever, local, and she was somewhat known. And she's not retiring, but she's moving, and so she's lived in this house for 50 years. Oh my goodness! So we've become friends, and she's validating for me. But I can see where I'm going to be if I don't, get a grip on some of this stuff. She's organized and I'm not, but she listed on a ladies group that I'm in my neighborhood, she had gourds. And the Cherokee Nation gives us access to heirloom seeds, and I had requested gourds at one point and tried to grow them so that I'm gonna make some art out of gourds. Well, goodness, I couldn't grow them here in Texas, they just didn't work. Well, here are these gourds. Actually coming to meet this lady, I sat on her porch. I was with her 6 hours yesterday. I've spent some time with her previously. The gourds actually came from Cherokee country prior to the removal. So that whole thing is there already, which is amazing. So what I intend to do is go into mask making with these massive Jeep load of gourds that are already dried and clean and aged and beautiful. I'm afraid of starting it because, they're fragile too in some ways. But then she made hats and she did all these things. So yesterday she gave me all of this kimono silk. It comes on a bolt, but it can't be made for a kimono because it's been used from. So she gave me bolts of this silk, and she made hats, and she gave me all these silk tidbits from hats. So there's a question right there that I've got to figure out what I'm doing with all this.
I can't wait to see.
I can't wait to show you.
To me, it's like I always like to have something that I don't know yet. So I use a lot of technology too. Sometimes I would do 3D model and 3D print and then cast it into plaster, and then using the porcelain slip to kind of like to make it a chrysalis that I'm working on. The chrysalis shapes for a recent show that I did, and my other plans for next coming show is called Prayer Space. So I got a grant for DMA, so I can make a plan for the prayer space, which is like kind of like these things. It's gonna be on the wall, and then it's all white, and there's no religious iconography or a symbol of that, because I want to make a space that can relate with anyone's, and then also based on your own religions, you can kind of connect with your own religious purposes. So there's like a universal space of like prayer space I'm working on right now.
So last question for me, then if anybody else has other questions. If you could give one message to young artists who are grappling with identity, heritage, trauma, challenges in their life, what would it be?
Well, I get to do that all the time because I'm a teaching artist to a couple of different nonprofits. I'd started out where I was working with people maybe more in my age group or adults that didn't. The Dalai Lama said, if everybody would meditate, there'd be no war. And I take that a bit further. I think that if everybody would express themselves creatively, there would be no war. I believe that all of that angst and all the anger and everything that comes in all the differences is because people have everything pent up inside of them and form these own opinions, awful opinions, and I just try and get everyone to understand, if you'll just make art, everything will be okay. And art can be anything. It doesn't have to be these things. Art is culinary arts, textile arts, acting, writing, everything. So I used to coach women to go back, I'm not an artist, and I'm like, give me an hour. I'm going to change your mind, and bringing them with activities They don't make you have to make the details and make the things that, because somebody somewhere told them they weren't an artist. My 3rd grade teacher, she was giving us lots of coloring pages. And every kid's getting the same coloring page, and we had the same little, back then, we had like 8 crayons to a box, not 64. And everybody's looked alike, and I thought, this is ridiculous. So I took, it was a sun and some flowers, and I put in a rain cloud, and I added some lightning, and I took it up, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna get so much praise. No, she blasted me in front of everyone and told me that Renae doesn't know how to follow directions. Look at this atrocity that Renae, turned in.
Oh my gosh.
And I was mortified. But I went back to my chair and I thought, I don't know, that lady's wrong. I didn't say that out loud, and I didn't even take that home to like my parents. I just kind of thought, but then it made me afraid to do that, for probably ever. But I instill in every kid. I work in high schools. I get to go in and spend like an hour once a week, which is beautiful because they're happy for the break. And that's my biggest message. Yes, we're learning some art techniques. I also teach Shakespeare and writing and theater and all these other things, but that's my big message is be authentic, find what you like, and do what you want to do. Even if you have to do it at home in your bedroom, for now while you're under someone else's tutelage. But just, I do that every day, or I get to do that quite often.
So, any other questions for our wonderful artist? Well, I thank you, Jack and Renee, very much for your talk today, and thank you, audience. So, I would love for everybody to enjoy the show. We have refreshments. I did want to give a little plug for our next exhibit. So we have our second Women in Art Letting in the Light exhibition. It's 50 artists with 52 works. We are going to be setting that up next weekend. And it's spanning painting, photography, sculpture, ceramics, kind of like this exhibit did. Exploring themes of self-nurturing, illumination, and inner light. And the artist reception is Saturday, May 17th from 5:30 to 8:30, and we will have a best in show presented. So I invite everybody to come to that. So thank y'all for coming. And we've got some refreshments, and please enjoy the show and the rest of the gallery. Thank you.